And so, Andrew, I want to ask you about this, because you wrote a post about with your experience and what kind of crazy things parents ask you, because you were a kid who experienced parental alienation. And how does it make you feel when they ask? I'm sure they DM you and ask you advice.
Yeah, when I started in 2014, this was, I mean, I'm just bobbing my head nonstop. I'm 26. I'll be 26 in a couple days, actually.
So 2014, you were 20?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see, right about 20. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, when I started this in 2014, kind of circling back a little bit to what you were saying earlier about using the public as therapy, that was a mistake I made. I was turning my personal case into a public campaign in the attempt to try and garner attention, thinking that I was the only one experiencing this, and I wasn't. There was, tens of thousands of couples out there, all in these different Facebook groups that were experiencing something either like mine or even more vicious, depending on where they were at in their circumstances. And at that point, there were a lot of people calling for children of alienation, but you were only really seeing maybe some guest speakers in like Dr. Phil episodes. There wasn't a lot of, there wasn't as many people speaking out today as there were then. And so I stepped into the fray thinking that this was the way to solve my personal issues. And very quickly, I just got swarmed by a lot of people. It did open a lot of opportunities for me where I could speak as a guest speaker on radio talks. I got to meet a lot of high tier names up there, like Thomas Fiddler from the Fathers' Rights Movement. I got to meet Jill Geezy from the Parental Alienation Awareness Organization. And I got the opportunity to talk to a lot of other people that are very active in this movement. And for the most part, my presentation was fairly decent. So it wasn't like I was just coming there to air my dirty laundry. But at the same time, it was nonstop. It would come from all directions. And there were oftentimes during, especially holidays, I was trying to rebuild my relationship with my mother. I was maybe about a year or two into working on that. And it's a very weird experience, just honestly speaking, when, you spend 13 years of your life hating a specific parent, thinking that they left you, that they abandoned you, that they don't care about you. And then now all of a sudden I have to own up to everything I've said to her in the past, and I have to look her in the eyes and try and build a relationship with her. And that was a very difficult process. But the thing was, I was willing to throw myself out there and give her my time and energy to do so. And to have that impeded, because obviously I was only visiting her during holidays because of school and sometimes work. And so to have people calling me up on Christmas, for example, and I have to get away from the family, run upstairs and counsel somebody because they are really frustrated and they're really either depressed or just emotional in general, and needing to vent their current struggles and everything that they're going through. And I'm not a counselor. I'm at best, I'm an enthusiast in psychology, but I am by no means qualified to really lead people through these things. And it was nonstop. I'd get, like you were saying before, I would get these really long essays on a person's personal life, and I'd be reading through it, and just so I can try and answer the questions. But again, there's nothing I can do. I'm not somebody who can just snap my fingers and say, hey, your kid's going to figure this out. I can't give the secret sauce I can explain what the circumstances were for me to figure things out, but there's nothing I can do to snap my fingers and say, your kid is fixed now.
Right. Yeah. And then they get frustrated by that. And then they sometimes get angry. Have they ever gotten angry with you?
There have been times where they cut communication off, saying, okay, well, this is not working. And then they go off somewhere else. I am very good at diffusing high tension situations for obvious reasons. So it never really bothered me. For me, it was more of a, okay, at least I can move on with what I'm doing for the day. And unfortunately for them, they kind of just snowball into bigger and bigger frustrations, and sometimes even shoot themselves in the foot just because they get so emotionally tense and so worked up that they stop thinking rationally, and then they make that impulsive decision and further alienate their kids. And that was just something I had to make sure that I didn't hold myself accountable for. I mean, it's something that happens a lot in that movement. And it reached a point where later in maybe mid 2015, that's when I decided to step out, simply because I was getting too sucked in. And it reached a point where, like, I'd go on Facebook, for example, and all I would see is negative story after negative story and negative story. And it was so emotionally draining. You get all these people trying to come to you for counseling, and there's really nothing you can do to help them. And then I pretty much said all the things I could say at that point. And then within my own personal life, I wasn't getting the therapy I needed. And so I was reaching that point of complete and utter parental alienation burnout. And that's when I pulled back, and I really had to do some internal work. And that's where I've been for the most part for like the last 5 years.